change in taxes. So here you go. Discretionary fiscal policy to manipulate the following economy. MPC of 0.5. Looking at that gap there on the left, what two options does the government have? So we know that it's a recessionary gap, and they want to increase. There's a gap of 20 billion there. If they increase government spending, to figure out the multiplier, you take 1 over 0.5, because that's MPS as well, so it's 2. You know you're going to increase by 20, so you want to increase by 20, so your initial increase should be 10 billion. But how about cutting taxes? Well, it's MPC over MPS, right? So 0.5 over 0.5 is 1. So how much are they going to increase taxes by? Sorry, cut taxes by. Remember, it has to be negative. They're going to cut it by 20 billion. Okay? Awesome. A little cartoon here for a break. Don't tell me to get a job. You're the one getting a huge tax cut to stimulate the economy. You get to work. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Non-discretionary fiscal policy. So real quick, we'll go through this. This is not as important as the other stuff. Tax multiplier, marginal propensity to consume, spending multiplier. Not as important. Okay. These automatic stabilizers, GDP's down, tax burden on consumers is low, promoting consumption, increasing AD. So these are things like welfare and stuff like that, right? Okay. When GDP is up, there's more tax burden on consumers, discouraging consumption, decreasing AD. So that's the point, right? Policymakers don't have to do anything. It's already in the law. All right, so back to a little bit of practice. Okay, so go ahead and pause after you go through this. You got a gap here on the right. What do you do? Okay. How much is needed to close the gap? Going from there, figure it out. Pause the video. Okay, so 0.9, so 1 over 0.1, because MPS is 0.1, so it's 10 is our multiplier. The gap is an inflationary gap. You need contractionary fiscal policy. You can decrease spending or increase taxes. So what if we decrease spending, right, and our multiplier is 10, and we're trying to close 50, we need to decrease spending by 5 billion. Right? If you wanted to do taxes, right, so you'd have to do MPC over MPS, so 0.9 over 0.1. That would not be any fun to do. Okay, awesome. Second one. So we have a recessionary gap. I answered the first question for you. Go ahead and pause, try to do the rest. Okay, some of you didn't pause, I could tell. So MPC is 0.8, so 1 over MPS, so 1 over 0.2 equals 5. So that's our multiplier. We need expansionary fiscal policy to close the recessionary gap. Two options: increase spending, decrease taxes. How much should initial government spending need to close the gap? So we're closing a gap of 200. We have a multiplier of 5, so we need to change it by 40 billion. Awesome. All right, last part we're going to go through fast. Problems with fiscal policy. So the first thing that this problem is, if Congress decides to combine taxes and spending, you're going to have deficit spending. So a budget deficit is when the government's expenditures exceed its revenue. So every year where they have a budget, just like I do in my house. So if I make $50,000, but I spend $60,000, I have a deficit of $10,000 for the year. Same thing for the government, but it's in trillions, right? So if they have a deficit, then you add those deficits together over the years, and that's where you get the national debt. National debt is in the trillions. If the government increases spending without increasing taxes, what they get is an annual deficit and national debt. Most economists think this is a natural evil in order to stimulate the economy, or a necessary evil to stimulate the economy. But some people think it's terrible and we need to do something about it. At this point, there's probably going to continue the debt. President Trump has talked about increasing, that's fun, increasing spending, which is going to lead to a deficit for the year and debt. So, right, deficits per year, add them together, that's debt. Who ultimately will pay for this? Well, it's going to be probably not you, but maybe your kids or maybe your kids' kids years and years down the road. Somebody's going to have to pay at some point, right? We can't just keep going into debt, or maybe we can and we'll just roll with it. All right, so additional problems real quick. Timing, so we have this lag. So it takes time for Congress to pass a law. Sometimes they're reading the economy and they're like, it's too late. They're already deep into a recession. Changing taxes is quicker, but spending and planning, if you think about like those times where they can't pass a budget, it's because they can't figure out how to come to an agreement, right? And then politics, right? So politicians are pushing for either Democratic agenda or Republican agenda. So a senator may promise more welfare and a public works program because he's a Democrat, but there's already an inflationary gap and he really shouldn't, economically speaking, but they do anyway because of their politics. Okay, so those are quick. This is the one you have a question on in your problem set. So it's called the crowding out effect. Okay, so basketball boxing out is when you use your body to prevent the other person from getting a rebound. So if you can visualize that painted area on a basketball court called the key, if you can box out your defender, sorry, the offensive person, if you can box them out to keep them from getting the ball, right? Government spending might cause unintended effects that weaken the impact of the policy. So they're going to crowd them out, box them out. So example here is we have a recessionary gap. Government creates a new public library, right? AD increases. They're like, yay, we're going to spend money and close that recessionary gap like we did in our examples here. But now, what if consumers spend less on books? An unintended effect, a boxing out or crowding out, is now that AD decreases because consumer spending went down. And you can't always predict this, right? So this is a problem with fiscal policy that we can't always predict. Here's another example. Government increases spending, but has to borrow money. This is the one that you should use in your problem set. So AD increases, the government has increased spending, but they're borrowing from China. This increases the price for money, the interest rate. Interest rates rise, so now people don't borrow to build new factories. So AD decreases. The government has actually crowded out consumers and investors. Okay? So consumers and investors are really excited about the economy getting better, but the government borrowed money to spend, and they actually have now higher interest rates and don't. That's the crowding out effect. Lastly, the net export effect. So international trade reduces the effectiveness of fiscal policies. So we have a recessionary gap. Government increases spending, increasing AD. That increase in AD causes an increase in price level and interest rates. We'll talk more about this next unit. U.S. goods are more expensive. We know this, right? You knew this from the last one. Okay. International exchange rate. Now people don't want our goods. So foreign countries buy less. Exports are falling. And now net exports fall, which decreases AD. So sometimes the government can spend, and in the long run, it's actually going to decrease aggregate demand through some unintended consequences. That's the problem with fiscal policy. Okay? All right, so that's it. If you had a snow day, if you're one in the class with the snow day, do the problem set all the way through. If you had questions about fiscal policy, I'll give you a chance to fix it in class, but the rest will be due for sure. You're going to turn the whole thing in, and we're going to still have the test when we're supposed to have the test. Hopefully you enjoyed the snow. Hopefully you enjoy this more. See ya.